Hey guys, it's Alexander Dahl with Manifest Brutality again. This week, I don't really have too much updates from the stuff that I updated last week. I do have the vocals done for the collaboration song on Reddit. I'm putting the final touches on it, as anyone can attest that always takes time. And as I've heard people say before, at a certain point, you kind of just need to know when to say it's done, whether you actually think it's done or not. You have to be ready to just kind of let it go and move on to something new. And so I'll probably put the finishing touches on that this weekend, and then it should be out next Friday, which would be the 30th, or no, the 6th. So September 6th is when the song "See in Me" should be ready to go out, and it's been like 3 months in the making for that song to be to reach from the point of creation to the point of completion, about 3 months, which is typically, that's probably fine. Some people probably do it faster, considering the fact that I'm kind of on the schedule of doing one album every 2 years. Um, I'm sure some quick math there would, probably put it to 1 or 2 months per song or something like that. Um, 2 months per song, since there's 12 songs in an album, takes 2 years. It's 2 months per song, essentially. Um, with that being said, I'm gonna tell another one of my audition stories today, and this one takes place about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Um, After one of the bands that I was in broke up, Astroward, I started looking around for other bands to play with. And one of the ads that I saw was for this band that was basically like a dance cover band. They were doing a bunch of shows, covering songs, doing like a live show out of that. So I responded back to the ad and I said, hey, I'd like to audition, try out, etc. And he responded back and basically gave me the information about his band. And they had a lineup. This guy, he did drums. He moved on to bass, and then now in the current iteration, he was moving on to keyboards. So there had been several different iterations of him trying to put this band together. Some more successful than others, since he actually did do some shows with some lineups. Um, so when he responded back, I asked for basically like a set list, like what are the songs, um, how often did you want to play out, like that sort of stuff. So he sent me the songs. I listened to them, practiced a few of them before I went into the audition, and for the most part, I mean, I learned them. They were fine. There was one song that had a weird little fill at the beginning of it that was kind of off time that I couldn't quite nail. But in his ad, one of the major things that he was specifying was that whoever the drummer was had to play to a click track and could not do anything other than, playing to a click track. Obviously, embellishment, play the song, but essentially play the song as it is on the recording and play it to a click track. So, um, that's what I did. Fine. Played the song, played it to a click track. So I had to go to the other side of the city, which was fine. And then, so I roll up in this weird little neighborhood, and it's not like a trailer park, but it was, I don't know, it seemed run down, sort of. And so I'm looking around for this house. All the lawns are overgrown. None of them are mowed. There's like trash kind of like piled up on the street corners kind of thing. And at first I started to get a little bit apprehensive about it. Because, I mean, you never want to go into these things and think you're going to get robbed. Or end up walking around in a dangerous part of town, like what happened to me one time. But that's a completely different story. Um, So I eventually find the house. I go in there, or I go up and I knock on the door. and some old lady answered the door. Wasn't expecting it, but some old lady answered the door. She was perfectly fine, perfectly nice. And then this other guy who didn't look like there should have been any sort of, you know, affiliation between this, what I assume was a sweet old lady, and this other, like, rocker dude that was trying to start a dance cover band. But you know, whatever. Everything happens in this world, and everything that can be should be, and everything that should be better be, will be, as it is. So he leads me downstairs, and then he shows me around, shows me this room, and this guy has like 3 rooms in his basement, which was all the rooms in his basement minus the bedroom. You know, there might have even been equipment stored in there, but every room had musical equipment stored in it of some nature, whether it be guitars, drums, keyboards. This room had, or all of the rooms were just jam-packed with equipment, and not in any sort of organized way. It was just completely randomly assorted. And then he shows me this, like, practice space room that we're gonna do the audition in. So he has this little drum riser built up, which lifts the drum set off about maybe a foot off the ground. And I mean, this was a basement. It's not like there was like tall ceilings, so lifting the drum set a foot off the ground in the basement, you know, your head is kind of near the ceiling. And so that was a little bit discerning. And so I was waiting for other people to show up, other band members to show up, because he had said that there were going to be people showing up, which became just a bold-faced lie. Nobody was showing up. At a certain point, after me playing drums for a bit, he was just like, "Oh, well, I got a text. I guess nobody's showing up." He didn't get a text. He didn't even have his phone on him. And so I started to get really suspicious, and then he's just like, "Okay, well, you know, I need to see you play to a click track, because I need to make sure that you can play to a click track." And I'm just like, "Oh, okay, man, it's okay." Just relax. And so he hands me these headphones, which were really shitty headphones, and so I put them on. And he starts playing this click track, which, to me, a click track has some sort of definition to it, whether it be, you know, a 4/4 4 measure repeating thing that has like a click at the beginning of the repetition kind of thing. What he essentially had me play to was more of a metronome that he had pre-recorded to the BPM that he wanted. So there was absolutely no identifying factors of when a repetition was, which shouldn't matter because I'm just playing to the click track. The rest of it, I'm completely improvising, except for the fact that then he says, "Well, since you're going to be playing to a click track anyway, let's do one of these other songs that I had just started learning a few days before this audition." And so he throws on the click, put on the headphones, he starts playing the song, and I kind of just listen it out, try to figure out where he is, because he's not listening to the click track. And so I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to start playing to the click. And so I start playing to the click. He's playing bass to not the click. And after about a minute of that, and me playing the drums, which I'm a bit of a heavy hitter, he stops, gets a little bit frustrated, and he's just like, "You said you could play to a click, and you're not playing to a click." And I said, "Okay, well, yeah, I can hear the click. I know that, you know, aside from my humanization of the part, I'm meeting the click. You do not appear to be listening to a click, and so I'm wondering what you're basing this off of." And he says, "I can hear the click." And I said, okay. Um, so I was just like, okay, well, let's start over. Let's try this again. So he resets everything, restarts the click. I come in with the click. Now this time I didn't wait for him to come in. I just started drumming. And then he starts playing bass again. And he's just giving me, kind of the side eye, giving me the look, what's going on. Eventually he stops again and he says, "You're still not playing along with the click." And so I'm just like, well, this is bizarre. Like, what do you mean? And he's just like, well, I can see that you're not playing along with the click. And I'm just like, what do you mean you can see that I'm not playing along with the click? What are you listening to that is giving you the tempo? And so he says that he's not listening to a click to see the tempo. He's looking at the signal flare on the level of a side chain on his little recording board that is bouncing up and down in time with the click. So he's assuming that whenever the visualization of that peak meter is at its loudest point, that is his metronome. That's his click. And so I tried to explain latency and how there's absolutely no way that that's possible. And he was not having it. In fact, he was very angry about it because it had worked for him before. He didn't foresee any problem with it working on into the future, and that was the way that he was going to do it. And so I kind of just said, well, I can play these songs. Obviously, it's going to take me a week or so or more, depending on how many of these songs you want me to learn before we start doing any sort of shows. And he just says, no, that's okay. I don't think this is going to work out. And I said, okay, man. And he said, well, thanks for coming by. Best of luck to you. And I was just like, same to you, buddy. Like, I don't understand how you expected this to work for you if this was going to be your meter for making a drummer play to a click, and how you're going to analyze this. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So, I packed up my sticks, packed them in my little stick bag, and I left, and I drove home, kind of a little bit bewildered. But it is what it is, and I never talked to that person again. And from what I know of the project that he was trying to start, I have never heard of that project since then. So I can only assume that it has not come into fruition. But I don't know. Maybe he decided to go with a different band. Could be. So that's another one of my bizarre stories of trying to go audition with somebody who was trying to make me play to a visualized click, which I've actually seen some of the new technology where people can wear like a vibrating device and it vibrates to the tempo that you set it at, which is kind of interesting. I haven't tried one of those, but to me, I'm not exactly sure that that's something that would work for me to monitor my tempo. Well, in any case, those are my updates for the week. That's my crazy little audition story. And I'm going to leave it there. Like and subscribe and share. Chime in for the discussion. I, of course, want to hear everybody's stories and how you interact with musicians and what you do and do not like about that. Beyond that, I hope everybody has a good night. All right, bye.